Hi, Pete Walker here from Wax Wicked Plants. My favourite carnivorous plant are Sarracenias. This is a hybrid of a purple pitcher plant, been outside all winter. It's a beauty.
My favourite plant is Streptocarpus polka dot purple. I love the contrast between the purple and the white in the flower, and it is such an easy plant to grow.
So here we have our display irises, getting ready for what was to be Chelsea. All growing down the side here. And over here we've got some of our sales irises. Growing really well this season. And we're on some great big plants and some great flowers. I think my favourite's probably got to be Sable, the darkest colour, one of the best sellers.
Hello, Stan Griffin here from House Cacti. Let's repot a cactus, everyone's fear. How do you know when to do this? Well, if you look at this plant, it's well filling the pot, even pushing on the sides. This one at the back has got plenty of room, so that's fine. Let's concentrate on the one at the front. Now, how to handle them. What's wrong with bubble wrap? It's ideal. Much better than rolled up newspaper and cardboard and big heavy gloves. Polystyrene is pretty good when you've got big spikes on your plants. But I can use my hands, I'm used to it. So let's just take the whole pot off. Stand that up for a second. Now we've found a pot that's quite a bit bigger than the original. And we're going to fill that with gritty compost. Now I've got one I prepared earlier, and we take the old pot away, and all we do is pick up our plant and drop it into the hole, and then give it a bang and it's firmed in there. Now if you want to add a bit of grit round there to make it look decorative, that's fine.
Hello, Rosie Hardy here. This is one of my favourite plants, especially for this time in the spring. This is Doronicum excelsum Harper Crew. What a fabulous big yellow cheerful daisy to brighten up any day. By far the best form of these plants. You can get other Doronicums, but none that flower and stay so truly perennial as this one does.
My name is Mel Collins from Lickfield Hostas, and I just wanted to tell you what my favourite hosta is. Of all of those cultivars out there, it's Niagara Falls, and the reason I love this so much is its architectural qualities. It has the most enormous green leaves with lovely rippled margins, prominent veins, and it stands lovely and tall, and the leaves are hung from the top of the stems in such a beautiful way.
This is my favourite plant I'm showing you today of the moment. This is Heuchera cranberry. Has gorgeous pink flowers on it in the summer and lovely foliage, as you can see. It gets better if it goes in full sun. The colour goes much redder, and you can put this in part shade or full sun. Easy to grow, very hardy. It's lots of love.
I'm going to share with you a couple of my favourite plants. These are sundews, like our own native sundew, but these guys are South African. And what sets these guys apart are their incredible flowers. And these are winter growing plants, so they grow the cooler months during the winter and then they die back to their roots for the summer. But the flowers are absolutely remarkable and pretty huge as well. I mean, this one here is probably at least 2.5 inches across. They can be white, some are pink, and very rarely you find these incredible poppy red flowers. Now, whilst these sundews are pretty hard to grow, Some are dead easy, just on a sunny windowsill and a dish of rainwater. And the best species to look out for is Drosera capensis, which I have on the website. Really easy to grow and great fun. Great way of getting kids interested in plants.
These plants here are Meconopsis linghome, or the Himalayan blue poppy. It's a fantastic hardy perennial, just starting to come back into growth now, producing these distinctively hairy leaves. These plants will then flower around about late May, early June. They produce a tall flower stem up to 1 metre or so high and have the most intense blue poppy flowers. They really are stunning and grab everyone's attention that sees them.
Right, well, welcome back to the virtual flower show. My name's Martin Fish, and I've got with me a group of exhibitors here, all RHS Gold winners, so the best of the best we've got here. And we're going to answer a few more questions now. So we're going to start with one about penstemons, and this question comes from Sharon. She's got a couple of penstemons that she's growing in pots, and she's had them now for a few years, but they've never flowered. She cuts them back in the spring, they grow back nice and strong and healthy, but no flowers. So she just wants any ideas or any tips that we can give her to try and encourage some flowers this year. Let's make 2020 the year the penstemons flower for Sharon. So anybody grow penstemons? I do, but not in pots. Mine are in the garden.
Well, I do, but Vicky, you do. Go on.
No, I don't grow many. No, you Rosie, you're better with pens. You grow loads of penstemon.
Yeah,
my brother breeds them, but you actually grow loads of them. So go on.
Okay, let's go with this. So penstemons again in containers. Sounds as though she's pruning them at the right time. They're growing perfectly well. If they're not flowering, then the feed regime is something that's got to be looked at. For penstemons to grow and flower properly, like any flowering plant, they need a load of K. They just got to have potassium. Tomato feed. From the beginning of the season, when they start into leaf, just give them tomato feed, and that should encourage them to put on some flowers. And if they're putting on a huge amount of foliage and becoming very, very green, I might advise that she actually takes 1/3 of the growth out once the growth has got up to around about 6 inches. What's that? 15 centimeters. I'm not very good with this modern technology. Yeah, I would take half, 1/3 of it out, thin out the amount of foliage that's there, because it just seems to be wanting to grow. And if you restrict that, that will then encourage it to actually put on some flowers. If it doesn't work this year, get rid of them and start again, to be honest, because it's not worth it. If you're growing them to be flowering and they're not doing it, just get rid of them and start again.
Okay, and there's lots of places you can buy them online at the moment, of
course.
Absolutely. So just get Googling them, Sharon. I think the other thing is make sure you've got them in a fairly sunny place as well, because they do like some sun on them. They'll take a little bit of shade, but they predominantly like an open, sunny, warm position, and the potash will hopefully encourage some nice flowers for you. Right, this is a question for Alec. We've got with us. It's disappeared. Oh, it's not. It's right in the middle of the screen there. This is a peony one, Alec. This is from Sue Bell, and she would like to know what and when to feed peonies, and what sort of fertilizer would you use. Now, we don't know whether these are in containers. I'm assuming they're growing in the ground. So how would you feed peonies?
Well, peonies generally aren't that hungry, it has to be said. So if you've got reasonably good soil, you probably don't need to feed them that often. Maybe once in the spring when the shoots are just coming through, or maybe in the autumn. You can use product placement. You can use some of our fertilizer, but any well-balanced general fertilizer will do. Certainly, I wouldn't recommend using Tomerite or anything like that. That's probably a bit too much. So something a bit more well-balanced, Grow More or something like that works very well. If you've got really sandy soil, of course, you'll need to make sure you do stay on top of feed. But if you've got reasonably good soil, most peonies tend to do very well without any feed at all.
Yeah, I mean, they've got that big fleshy root, haven't they, I suppose, which is a natural food store for them. If Sue hasn't done them now and wants to, it's still time to, she can give them a feed while they're growing, presumably. It won't do any harm.
Won't do any harm at all, no. It won't necessarily help them flower this year, but it will certainly help flower for next year.
Okay, there you go. Thanks for that then, Alec, and hope that helps Sue. Right, let's have a look what else we've got. Questions. This one is from Anna. Anna would like some advice on a Tracheospernum jasminoides, which is a lovely evergreen scented climber. And she planted it last year, and despite looking green and healthy, it hasn't grown an inch. So it's one of those sort of climbers that it's not totally hardy. It's a little bit delicate, certainly where I am in North Yorkshire. So anybody grown this? It's beautiful when it flowers. It's got the most beautifully sweet scented flowers. Well, I've as nobody's even twitching on this one. It's as if you've gone frozen on me on this one. Well, I've got one in a pot that came from Tinings Climbers, one of the exhibitors at the shows, and it for the first year, I must admit, mine did a similar thing. I know it just sat there in a container. I grow it in a pot purposely because if we get a cold winter, I can just lift it in somewhere where I give it a little bit of protection. But it didn't do anything for the first year. It just sat there. It was green and it was healthy. But once the roots get established, I think they take a while to get the roots down. And once the roots get into the new compost and it's had plenty of water and feed, it did put out some nice long tendrils and start to make a sort of a climbing bushy plant. So I think it's probably just a little bit of patience that you need with this one. Keep it watered, keep it somewhere sunny, and make sure that if it is in a pot, you're giving it a liquid feed, or if it's in the ground, keep it watered. Especially at the moment, the ground is very dry in some parts of the country. So I think this is the year it will now start to make growth, that it's put its roots out there. So I think the dog wants to go out, somebody.
Martin, what temperature would you say that's the minimum would take with the Tracheospernum?
Well, mine has had frost on it. I mean, this year it stayed out because we've had a very mild winter. I mean, I think they are hardy down to about -5. But if you start getting -10s, then it can do quite a lot of damage. So they are sort of that borderline hardy outside. So I think you've just got to be a bit wary. If you live in a very, very cold sort of northerly or high altitude, then it's worth just growing them somewhere very sheltered or in a big pot that you can move them. But lovely plant to grow and beautiful.
Do you think
scent.
putting horticultural fleece over them if you're in a cold area will actually help?
I think to a certain extent, yeah. I mean, the fleece will give a couple of degrees of frost protection. So if it's -5 or 6, it will give them that little bit of protection like a duvet. But if it drops to -15, a layer of fleece is neither use nor ornament really. So it's so yeah. Just think where you plant them, not anywhere too exposed.
Welcome to Ottershaw Cacti's guided tour. Here you'll see lots of our favourite plants as well as some short videos around the nursery. Hope you enjoy.
the numbers going round?
Yes.
Fab. Okay, so this is where we're going to plant our little foxgloves. These are small 9cm ones, which will flower a bit later on this year, which is very exciting. And Terry's already done a little bit of digging over. I got him to do the hard work. So I'm just going to go nicely in and make a hole. Into which, what have we got? Digitos mertenensis. This is a really pretty one. Tell everybody about mertenensis whilst I plant it, Terry.
Okay, it's one of the perennial foxgloves. And in the world of foxgloves, perennial means 3 to 4 years, not the sort of 30 to 40 years that you might think of with, say, a Muckamus daisy. Nevertheless, once they're in the ground, they're going to flower every year and seed about, because this is a fertile one. Mary's planting them underneath a rather nice shrub, Stachyrus praecox. This is a shrub from China, which produces lovely racemes of yellow flowers at this time of year.
I'll just put a bit more mulch around the top, shall I?
Yeah, a bit of mulch is always good. The mulch we're using is basically old leaves. It's just all the leaves from the garden. We have a huge range of trees and shrubs. They produce a lot of foliage in the course of the summer, and in the autumn that all falls and we compost it. And that's a really good idea, because essentially foxgloves, like so many plants, have a relationship, a symbiosis with the fungal strands in the soil, the mycorrhiza, and they love a bit of leaf mould to keep them going. And that's all the feeding you really need to do. If your soil's very poor, you can add a bit of fertilizer, but if not, then just a little bit of old compost is quite good enough.
I don't think we need to water them today because it's been really wet, but if it was a bit drier, a bit later on in the season, maybe they could do with a little water overhead now.
Yeah, good
Let's go
point.
plant some more, shall we?
I think so. What a great fun.